Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is January 17, 2024. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Alan Berman again for part 3. He breaks the world's record. Hello. That's because it was Captain Beefheart's birthday the other day, his 83rd birthday.
Wow.
We met because you had a Captain Beefheart thumbnail on your Facebook page, and I don't do Facebook. And my wife had it up, and I said, "Who is that?" So let's just start off with our new question, Alan. Oh, well, it's an honor and a pleasure. Where in the heck you calling in from?
Canterbury, New Hampshire, in the heart of the Lakes region.
Beautiful. So good to spend this time with you. And the first question is just kind of invented 10 minutes ago. What's the best thing that's happened since humans started and the worst thing that happened since humans started? Just off the top of your head.
Well, I think the best thing that's happened is air.
Air. That's a good answer. And the worst thing?
Politics.
Oh my God, that's good. One guy said the best thing was cheese. And then I said, well, the worst thing is vegan cheese.
Yeah, I might actually like to amend that to air and lobster.
Oh, lobster. Well, we didn't invent lobster, but we invented eating them. Well, no. The best thing, it's not an invention. I'm not asking for, but I'm just saying the best thing that happened. So lobster's good. Okay.
Lobster's
So
good. Air
yeah,
is good.
the air is really good. Okay. So T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Kid talk.
Oh, kid talk. That is so good. That's what one of my members of my Finnegan's Wake reading club said. Oh, I get it. Finnegan's Wake is like that secret language you invent with your brother or sister or your sibling, or you invent with your best friend when you're a kid. Kid talk.
Absolutely. I mean, my inner talk is, well, for the last 30 years. I'm going to tell you a short story about this that blew my mind. I do inner child work with clients, therapy clients, and I put them into a light trance, and I ask them to allow into their awareness an image of themselves as a young kid.
Yeah.
And they do. And I go, whichever image comes first, that's the right one. And they go, okay, I got one. And I ask them to describe the child to me, and they describe who they are and where they are and how old they are and how they're dressed. And I ask them to make eye contact with the child. And they go, okay, I'm making eye contact. And I said, so about how far away are you from them? And they said, well, about 10 feet away. I said, okay, so I want you to sit on the ground, and I want you to invite them to come and sit in front of you, like knees to knees, so that you're close enough so that if you turned your hands up, they could put their hands in your hands.
Wow.
Okay. And but invite them. Don't push this. Let this be their choice, because the kids got to have the ability to make the choice. So those introductions almost always go beautifully, and it gives adults an opportunity to actually connect with that voice that they're hearing in their head all the time. When they like something or don't like something, you go, no, I don't like broccoli, or no, I don't want to go to that place. That's always an inner kid. So this process actually gives them an opportunity to meet and make eye contact with, and to hold hands with that person that they were when they were so young. So that's the intro. So a few years ago, I did a great inner child session with a client. And then later that night, I was watching TV, and I got a little stoned, and I went to the bathroom to pee, and I heard this voice in my head, and the voice in my head said, "So you're so good at facilitating meetings between adults and their inner kids all the time. When are you going to start spending some time with me?" And I
Wow.
went, "Nope." And I said, "Well, of course I'm willing to spend time with you." And the kid said, "So because you're stoned, I'm going to tell you this straight. I'm the one that's in charge of whether you can pee or not. And until you start paying more attention to me, I'm not going to let you pee." And I went,
Ah!
"Well, that's bull, and I'm not going for that. You can't hold me hostage for peeing. So I'll just go back and I'll watch television for a half hour, and I'll do this later." So a half hour later, I got up to go to the bathroom to pee, and I hear the voice say, "Did you not hear me the first time?"
Ah!
And I went, "Oh my God, this is I'm being held hostage by one of my inner children." And I
You
went,
got more than one. That's funny.
"I do have more than I have in my book. I actually articulate. I let 5 different inner kids tell
Oh,
their own stories.
good. That's really healthy. So I'm going to jump ahead because you anticipated that. It's
I,
one of my major questions. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
we made it.
Oh my God.
I know it was hard. I know it was challenging. I know there were days you just wished it would end. But every night before you put your head on the pillow, you said, 'All right, I'll come back tomorrow and give it another shot.' And
Yeah.
every time you did that, you came back a little bit older, a little bit stronger, and a little bit more competent. And
Yeah.
because you did that, it made it possible for me to grow up into an adult. And I'm just here to tell you, thank you."
Oh, so touching, Alan. Leah Harvey Oswald's girlfriend, it's not his wife, his girlfriend, she wrote a book, and I had her right here in my house, and I interviewed her, and it wasn't about her book. I says, let me just ask my questions. And she was so happy. When I got to that question, if you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self? She said, I love you. I just started crying. It was so touching because most people say, oh, it's going to be all right, or exercise more. Or they take it a little, literally, like, oh, what can I do? Dr. John said, I won't go there. It was too voodoo for him, like, you're going to have me time travel. But that was really touching. We've made it. That is beautiful.
Or you made it.
Oh, I mean, okay.
You made it.
You made it. Yeah, you said we made it, but
I did say we made it, but
you,
yeah,
you made
but you asked what would I would say to the 12-year-old, and I
yeah.
would say, congratulations, you made it.
Hold on one second. I made a boo-boo.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm supposed to turn the phone off, and I did it. So that was good. Really good, Alan. It's so good.
That question is actually on the back cover of a Richard Bach novel.
Is it really? I could have got it from that. So
I think the novel is called Running from Safety. And the question on the back is that if you could talk to your 12-year-old, what would you tell them? What would you ask them?
Oh my God, I probably got that. Who is Richard Bach? He's like a Rod McEwen kind of new agey guy, or
no? Oh, Jerry.
He's not the seagull guy.
He is the seagull guy.
Oh, okay. So it's not new agey. You mean he's a good guy?
I think maybe he's one of the 3 best writers that ever lived.
Great.
Which is, I mean, he had trouble with his own family. Jonathan was actually his son, and he divorced Jonathan's mom, and so they never really got along. But he wrote, oh God, he wrote a lot of books. But the best book, hang on.
It's Jonathan Livingston Seagull's the name of the book.
That's the name of one of his books.
That's his. That's one of
the book that inspired me to write my book.
Yeah.
Is this one?
Oh, Illusions: The Adventures of what Messiah?
A Reluctant Messiah.
Oh, wow.
And so Richard Bach was a pilot. He flew in the I think in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And later on in his life, right after he had written Jonathan Livingston Seagull, he wasn't really making much money. And so he had a biplane, and he decided that he would go to the Midwest and fly over Iowa and Nebraska and, you know, those states in the middle of the country, and land in cornfields and give the locals rides for $3. You give them like a 15-minute ride in his plane for $10 or $15 or whatever.
Wow.
Actually, I think it was for $3. And on one of those trips, he sees a biplane that looks just like his down in a cornfield, and he goes, "Oh, someone I can talk to." And he goes down and he lands his plane next to the other guy's plane. And he lands and he gets out of his plane and he's looking at the other guy's plane and he's going, "There's no bugs on this guy's windshield, and there's no oil leaking from his engine. This plane looks like it just rolled out of the showroom." So he looks at the guy and he goes, "How do you keep your plane so clean? There's no bugs, there's no oil leaks?" He goes, "Well, that's the way I want it." And he went, "Well, yeah, no, that's the way I would want it too. But how do you do that?" And he said, "Well, I just make it that way." And the guy is the Messiah who got tired of the crowds, and he went, "Screw this. I'm tired of people asking me to heal them. I'm tired of people asking me for miracles. I'm tired of all of this bullshit. I'm just going to fly my plane. I'll give people rides for 10 minutes. And if they learn anything from me, so much the better." And he goes, "Well, how did you learn how to do all this stuff, you know, to be a Messiah?" He said, "Oh, I have this book." And he goes, "What book do you have?" He said, "I have this little handbook for advanced souls." And he goes, "Get out." And he said, "So show me the book." And the guy pulls this little book out of his pocket, and it's got all these little pithy sayings in it. I'll read one for you. Perspective. Use it or lose it. If you turn to this page, you're forgetting what is going on around you is not reality. Think about that. Remember where you came from, where you're going, and why you created the mess you got yourself into in the first place. You're going to die a horrible death. Remember, it's all good training, and you'll enjoy it more if you keep the facts in mind.
Oh my God. So to be clear, Richard writes fiction.
I think it's autobiographical. I think he actually met this guy.
Right, but it's autobiographical fiction, but it's not. Is it self-help fiction?
I don't think it was intended that way.
It's just fiction that sounds like it could be nonfiction.
Do you remember back in the 60s, I think, Jane Roberts wrote a bunch of books, Seth Speaks, and
Seth Speaks, yes,
Nature, Personal Reality, and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, Jane Roberts was a channel, a trance channel.
Yeah.
And Richard Bach studied with Jane Roberts.
Oh,
and so he learned about going into trance and channeling stuff when he was a young guy.
Wow.
So all of this stuff. So one of the other great things that he said was, if you have a question, a burning question in your mind, and you can't figure out an answer, go to your bookshelf, close your eyes, pick a book out of your bookshelf, open it to a page. So Jerry, think of a question you'd like to have answered, and I'm going to put my hands on the book and I'm going to open it to a page and we'll see what the answer is.
Right. You mean right now with
right
this,
now, think
with Illusions.
Like the answer to.
Yeah. Yeah. Why is, no, does art more activate or pacify us?
Okay. Okay. I needed more teaching for once than practice. Shimoda was stretched out under the fleet's wing, pretending to be asleep. I kicked him softly in the arm, and he opened his eyes. I can't do it, I said. Yes, you can, he said, and closed his eyes again. Dawn, I've tried. Just when I think something is happening, the cloud strikes back and goes poofing up bigger than ever. He's trying to teach him how to bust clouds.
Yeah.
You stare at a cloud and you ask it to disappear, it'll disappear. He sighed and sat up. Pick me a cloud, an easy one, please. I chose the biggest, meanest cloud in the sky, 3,000 feet tall, bursting up white smoke from hell. The one over the silo yonder, I said. The one that's going black now. He looked at me in silence. Why is it you hate me?
No,
So-
I would say that's a beautiful moment, Alan, because I need more practice. That's it. That art allows us to practice. And my parents taught me to look at the clouds because that was like a free art museum. So it's art that's always changing. And Richard Brodigan, you know, trout fishing in America, his great line is, everyone needs a role in life. Mine is clouds.
Hang in there just for a second.
Alan Berman's website is wellnessintegration.org. And I want to tell you, the first two parts, we did not list that, but now we are saying wellnessintegration.org. Okay, go ahead, Alan. Cloud dancing. Who's that written by?
It's not written by anybody. It is wisdom from the skies. It is 99 large cards. You ready?
Yeah. And that's all it is, a picture of a cloud. There's no text.
No text.
Oh, that's great. That is amazing.
I'm not sure where you are here.
No, you're doing fine.
99, and these things are big. They're like 7 by 10.
Very
so
good.
you can find this in a bookstore somewhere.
No, I
Clouds dancing.
just look out the window or stare at the sky. I used to see people talking on their cell phone in the back alleys when I'm riding my bike, and I go, fuck your cell phone, look at the clouds. And they were like, oh no, another crazy person. I said, man, Jerry, you better be nicer to people. Okay,
back when I was an agent, one of the weathermen from the local, not the underground weatherman, but the real weatherman, his name was Jack Chase, came in, and he wanted to do lectures at colleges and stuff. And so he was coming in to tell us what he wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
He said, I was walking through Government Center in Boston a couple of months ago, and I stopped people and I said, don't look up. What does the sky look like? And they went, how do I know? I'm looking down at my feet. And he said, I asked about 20 people and none of them knew what the sky looked like. And after they said they didn't know, I said, well, look up. And they looked up, and the sky is always a beautiful,
gorgeous,
a beautiful painting. And so he said, I started this company called Awareness of Sky Incorporated.
That is good.
And I want to go around the country talking to people about it.
That is good. I like that.
So to answer your question, I really was hoping to find a quote from the Messiah's Handbook for you. So I had to open to another page. So here it is.
Okay.
You are never given a wish without also being the power to make it true. You may have to work for it, however.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, you don't want art to be passive. It can be and zone you out, but it really is probably there to activate us.
Art is what reminds us that we can feel.
Yeah. reminds.
I mean, that's what artists do. They feel,
Yeah.
and then they make something out of the feeling so that somebody else can feel it. And I've always thought that the difference between art and craft was a craft is a beautiful thing, but art forces you to feel something.
It's really great, Alan. So two of my film heroes have this mantra. George Manupelli says, ignore yourself. Jonas Mika says, there is no self-expression. And the great jazz pianist Cecil Taylor says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making, music making more self-expression or more your vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
Well, I think we all channel. I think we all bring in ideas from the cosmos. I think really Jung was correct. We have a collective unconscious, and if we meditate or we calm ourselves with slow, deep breathing, we're able to access that collective unconscious, and it allows things to flow through us. And I think that's where most of great art comes from. I think it's from the collective, not from a particular source. I think what our brains do is they synthesize from a universe of information, and it just clicks in a couple of, like, it's like cylinders in a V8 engine. When all
Yeah.
the cylinders are clicking, you get to move. and,
Yeah.
uh, and that's what happens when we quiet ourselves and just allow things to come into our minds. Then we are connected to source.
Beautiful, Alan. John Cage said his teachers taught him that the function of music is to soothe the soul and make it susceptible for divine intervention.
I love
And
John Cage.
yeah,
One
in,
of his best pieces was just opening and closing the keyboard cover.
yeah, Silence 433, the
Yeah,
silence piece.
exactly.
Can art making be egoless?
Well, sure it can be, but but is it ever? I don't know.
Well,
You
it's
know,
funny, Alan. One lady, everybody says no, 80%. Then one woman said, it has it had no, great art is egoless, which has this great tinge to it because it feels like, well, there's some universality. You hit a note on your harmonica or hit a beat on your drum and people relate to it. Okay, but that's like they asked Ginger Baker from Cream, where'd you get your drum sound? He says, I was in London when they were bombing. Boom, 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 boom. They asked James Brown's drummer, you're the architect of funk drumming. Where'd you get it? He said, I'm in Ohio and there's a factory on one side of my house and a, a train on the other. So it's like boom, boom, tick, boom, boom, tick.
it's
He got it.
beautiful.
He got it from his environment. But the funniest was the guy from Negative Land. I asked him, he says, well, Missy Elliott, the rap stars, they asked her, where'd you learn how to sing? She said, from car alarms. So that is like her environment she wasn't saying like most black people would say, I learned how to sing in the church. She
That's right.
said, from the car alarms going off in my neighborhood, she learned how to sing. So and it is this whole thing about ego. People, the word egoless um, has a lot of baggage because it means some people go, well, you mean egotistical? No, I mean, can art making be egoless? And one person said, great art has to be egoless. So it is funny how much you're putting into it and how much something else, like you use the word channel, Cecil used the word vehicle.
I read this book when I was in college called Self-Realization and Self-Defeat,
Yeah.
and one of the main parts of it was um, how we defeat ourselves by being ego attached to things.
Yeah.
So, for example, a painter might paint but never show anybody his paintings because he doesn't want to be judged for it.
Yeah.
And this is a great song by um, David Byrne. The lyric goes, I'm painting again. You can't see it till it's finished.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're very fragile creatures. And here's the thing, Jerry, all of us have kids inside of us, and they all think that they're not good enough.
Yeah.
And so there's where the ego attachment is. It's all in the child who is criticized or punished for being or saying
Yeah.
who they are. And then I think we build ego to make it possible for those kids to continue to grow.
Yeah.
They have to go, no, this is my spot, and fuck you if you don't like it.
Yeah. Two really good examples. Woody Allen in Wild Man Blues, a documentary about him playing music. He goes and visits his parents, and he's a success. And they go, why didn't you become a doctor? You're a failure. They're still. And so then Frank Sinatra, huge success. He still didn't feel he was a success because his mother would never give him that. You did good. We're always wanting our parents to give us that, the kid inside, not good enough. But you brought it.
It's the whole premise of my book.
Yeah. Well, you brought up the word self, and I'm glad, because both Krishnamurti and McLuhan said violence is the human's search for identity. So talk about self, and how self-identification, your self-realization. How do you process that in self-identification? Violence is the human search for identity. Any comment?
I don't think it's a search for identity. I think it's a response to our environment. I was at a garden party about 30 years ago, and I sat down next to this lady, and she asked me what I did, and I asked her what she did, and she said, oh, I'm an anthropologist. And I went, oh God, an anthropologist? I've never had a chance to talk to an anthropologist. Can I run a theory by you? And she said, oh God, here we go again. So I said, well, so here's my theory. Early on in our development as, Cro-Magnon or Neanderthals, males had roles, and the male role was to be present in the moment, but to be preparing for the future, to know where the next game was going to come so that they could have food, and to know where the next attack was going to come from so that they could prepare themselves for it. So that was the male role, was standing in the present, gazing into the future. But the female role was to stand in the present and gaze into the past for what worked well to nurture the family. So a male and a female are standing in the same spot, looking in the same direction, and seeing two completely different things, because the female's assigning meaning to it, what worked in the past, and the male is looking at it with the meaning assigned, what can we make of what's coming down the road towards us? And so, it's so difficult for us to communicate, males and females, because we think we're looking at the same things, but we're not seeing the same things.
How did she react?
She said, nobody's ever said anything like that to me before. And I said, well, it's been haunting me for a really long time, how communication between myself and my wife or my girlfriends or my partners is so easily misunderstood, and we miss each other so often and so thoroughly. And so it fascinated me, and I keep trying to deconstruct how is it that we got to be where we are. I mean, which is actually kind of the question that you asked, right? I mean, where does the self come from? And I think
Where's the
that
self come? Where is the self come from? Is good. Where does the self come from? Well, but here's the thing. There's two things.
it comes
There's
from
a
trial and
cliche,
error.
huh?
It comes from trial and error.
Trial and error. Yeah. But that's good, trial and error. But there's a cliche I love to repeat. I don't know if it's true. Is women know, men suppose. And there's the other one is the mafia. The word mafia starts with the letters M-A, because women run the world, but they let men think they run the world. And neither of them I agree. I just love as prompts. But is the human hardwired for violence, or is it something we learned?
No, we're hardwired for it.
Really, you think that?
Well, what we have becomes an object of desire for people that don't have.
Yeah,
And when people don't have, they look to other people who have and want it. And if they can't get it, they will fight them for it. Which is, I mean, do you remember the opening scenes of 2001: A Space Odyssey?
yeah.
With the the chimps
Hey,
or whatever
yeah,
they were.
hey,
One of them finally found a bone, and they realized that they could hold it and use it as a tool. And the first tool they used it as was to bonk another one over the head with it.
yeah.
And I thought that was just such an insightful glimpse into our ancestry. Also, I recently watched a documentary series called Chimp Empire.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that? Have you seen that ever?
Tell me about it. I have not.
Chimp Empire. It's a community of 100 chimpanzees living in I can't remember what country in Africa, maybe Gambia, um, and they have cameras following all of these. I don't know how they're doing it. I mean, they're either using it's like the videographers are best friends with these chimps, but the chimps don't know that they're there, and
Yeah.
so they're displaying all this bonding bonding activities, mating activities. Um, here's a 10-year-old chimp who wants to become one of the alphas, but there's a 36-year-old chimp who's been the alpha for so long, and they're showing the facial expressions about, well, the 10-year-old one wants to pick nits out of the alphas, because if the alpha responds and picks nits out of him, then he's been acknowledged.
Mm.
It's like, and they're 99.8% the same DNA as we are.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, that's what I want you to at some point check out a little Maria Gimbutas, because you brought up anthropologist. She was an archaeologist and anthropologist that came about from UCLA, came about with thoughts that research that proved there were societies that weren't violent. So she's been credited by people like Rianne Eisler, who wrote a book called Charleston the Blade, and promotes the thing. We're hardwired for cooperation, and that partnership is really the key. So it is something I'm deeply researching right now, because I'm going to give a talk called "Can Art Stop War?" And so it's how much are we hardwired. So let's move on. Is perception reality?
Well, it is to the perceiver.
Yeah.
I mean, no, there is no reality. There's only perception.
Yeah. I got that answer before,
I think
and
I gave it to you the last time.
uh, that's good. I told you that in part two. Well, that's Lily Tomlin said reality is just a collective hunch.
That's true. I got to tell you, the end of this thing. After I had that conversation with the anthropologist,
Oh yeah, tell
I
me,
got
please.
back together with my wife, and I was telling her. I said I was telling this anthropologist about my theory about men and women and how they
Yeah.
see the universe so differently. She said, "Do you know who that lady was?"
Who?
And I said, I think she said her name was Kathy. She said, "That was Catherine Bateson." Do you know who
Oh
Catherine?
my
You know who
God.
Catherine Bateson is? She's the
I
daughter of Margaret Mead and Gregory Bateson.
that I know Catherine. I mean, I've seen her movie on her dad, and you've got Super ESP. This is Kismet to the max. Catherine Bason's talked at a McLuhan conference before. I'm huge into Gregory right this minute and Margaret, because yesterday Terry Gross had a guy who teaches at Santa Cruz. It's 45 minutes. I'll send you or it's 40-minute talk with Benjamin Breen, who just wrote a book on Margaret Mead and Bateson's work with psychedelics and psychological warfare.
Oh,
And it's
wonderful.
mind blowing that Gregory studied this German film over and over, and he worked for the OSS, which is the CIA before the CIA. And Margaret Mead, it's not known so, but she had a relationship with a woman, and it's really a deep research project on Gregory and Margaret Mead. So that's really great that you brought up Catherine Bates, and she's a remarkable woman. I've seen her speak. What's the most what is the most what is the difference between men and women? The most significant difference between men and women, physical aside.
What's the biggest difference between them? I think it's their what I just said. It's their tendency to view reality through the lens of either what's coming down the road or what's already come down the road. You know, like I said, men want to know how to prepare for the future. Women want to know how to take advantage of things they've learned from the past.
Yeah, that's good. And so you
That's as
think
clear as I can get, actually.
that's very clear. You think your theory is rooted in just your studies of human nature? Do you think it's rooted in someone you read or talked to? Because once you gave it to Catherine, you know, that's beautiful. But did you feel that was rooted? It was just a hunch you had?
Um, I I think maybe a piece of it came from oh God, I can't remember the guy's name now. He wrote a book called "You'll See It When You Believe It," and he's so famous, and I wish I could. I can't believe I can't remember his name, but maybe.
Well, we can Google it later. You'll see it when you believe it.
And part of his thing was he said, you know, when the pilgrims came on the
Yeah,
boats, the Indians didn't see the boats because they didn't have a concept
yeah,
for a boat or a sail. And
yeah,
so they couldn't believe it because they couldn't see it. I mean, they
yeah,
couldn't see it because they didn't have any framework for it. And you know, I've been a student of human nature, God,
yeah,
forever,
yeah,
and it's always been just a mystery to me why people want to compete and why they compete with such ferocity. Because I never really wanted to compete. I mean, I've certainly competed in lots of things, and you know, I've won 100 Monopoly games, and nobody will play Monopoly with me anymore because I seem to have a killer instinct there. But I played organized sports, and I never wanted to win because I never wanted to hurt the feelings of the people that were
Oh,
losing. And I've been watching the Olympics since I was, since I was born. And and it pisses me off so badly that there's one winner and everybody else is a loser in whatever the activity is. And I'm
yeah,
going, that's the stupidest thing I ever saw in my life.
yeah.
Do we have to make everybody a loser in order for one person to feel like a winner?
No, you
And
don't. But
it's just crazy.
it's complicated too. Alan, you really evoked that line too, bringing up that book. Groucho Marx says, "Who are you going to believe? Your eyes or my? Who are you going to believe? Me or your lying eyes?" But it's also they drop the word lying. Who are you going to believe? Your eyes or my eyes? You know. So McLuhan probed Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, saying, "Artists dream awake." Not to sound elitist, but everyone has this ability to create these amazing scenarios in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And what McLuhan learned from Joyce was that artists also dream while they're awake. Have dreams played a role in your creative process? Playing music, writing books, being a therapist?
I'd have to say yes. They have played a fairly large role. They are the window to the unconscious,
Yeah.
and and they don't just happen when you're asleep. They do happen when you're awake. There's a guy who lives in Santa Cruz. His name is David J. Brown.
I
He's an
know Dave.
Oh, do you really?
Do you still know him?
I he's a Facebook friend of mine, and we post on each other's posts from time to time. I
Good.
haven't met him, but I'm
Oh,
good friends.
let's get. I want to hook up with them. Send me. Anyways, yeah, go ahead, David J.
Well,
Brown. He wrote
he wrote a book on lucid dreaming,
Lucid Dreaming. Exactly.
and I have a few books on lucid dreaming also. Um, I've also had a couple of out of body experiences that happened quite spontaneously, where I suddenly, in the middle of the night, I found myself flying around the room,
Yeah.
and not in my body. I knew my body was in the bed asleep. Um, and one time that it happened, um, I went, well, I could go wherever I want now. And so I headed out towards the window. And when I went through the window, I was afraid I was going to break the glass, and it woke me up. And it shocked me out of the entire experience. But
Wow.
uh, in a class that I took called Illuminated Mind, they taught us how to visualize um, from a light trance state. Um, we had exercises where we looked into a crystal to see what the makeup of the crystal was. We looked into a leaf. We saw the little veins in the leaf. And eventually we went inside a pet and analyzed the pet for injuries. And so when it was, and I was going, well, maybe somebody can do this. I can't do this. But when we actually did the exercise, we had to visualize, put on a screen in our mind's eye a pet. And when I looked at my pet, I saw the pet. I know him really well, but I was in California. The pet was in New Hampshire. I looked at the pet, and it looked like he had a cut over his eye and a cut on his snout. And so I'm describing this to the facilitator, and the facilitator said, well, so what do you want to do about that? I said, well, in my laboratory in my mind's eye, I have this jar of medicated goop. And so I'll just take a little of this medicated goop out, and I'll put some on his snout, and I'll put some on his eye. And they went, great, that's fine. And the exercise ended. The next day, I called my wife in New Hampshire, and I said, I had the most amazing experience yesterday. I saw Sundance, our golden retriever, but it looked like he had been in a fight, and he'd been bitten in a couple of places. And she said, you're kidding. And I said, I no, why do you say that? She said, because he was in a fight with another dog yesterday, and he got a big hole in his snout and a big hole over his eye. And I took him to the vet, and the vet said, these holes are too big. I can't stitch them. They need some oxygen first, and they'll have to heal a little bit before we can intervene. And she said, and that was yesterday. And when did you do this thing? She said. I said, I did this yesterday afternoon. She said, well, I went to bed last night. When I woke up this morning, the cuts were closed and there was hair growing out of the spots where the wounds were. She said, did you do that? And I went, So, end of the next day, we went back to the class, and the teacher said, so I want you all to go home. I'm going to give you a little index card, and go home. And on the index card, I want you to write the first name, the city, the gender, and the age of the person that you're describing. And I want you to describe somebody who's got a malady or an injury or something broken on them. And I want you to write, just write their name, their age, their gender, and the city they're in on the front of the card, and write the symptoms on the back of the card. Because tomorrow we're going to do this other exercise. So we come back the next day, and we're doing the exercise. It was like the one with the pets. And my partner says, so Kevin, a male, 28 years old, in San Francisco, is going to appear on your screen. Visualize it, assume that it's there, make it happen, and just tell me when you have an image. I went, okay. And suddenly there's this fuzzy image, and it's the person who's laying on a table, like a treatment table. And I said, so what do you want me to do? He said, just scan the body up and down, 1 scan per second, and mention to me anything that you think gets your attention. So I'm scanning up and down, and I go, well, it looks like he's got a cut under his nose. And they went, okay. And anything else? And I went, oh, I don't know. And I looked some more. I said, well, it looks like maybe he's got like a bump on his head. Can't really tell. They went, okay, anything else? And I'm scanning. I go, well, I'm looking at his abdomen, and his whole abdomen is opaque. I can't see anything there. And she said, well, remember 2 days ago when we made ourselves really small and we went inside the leaf and we went inside the crystal? Make yourself really small and go inside behind the opaqueness and see what's going on in there. And I went, oh, right, okay, I'll do that. And in I dive, and I'm inside what was that movie, Amazing Journey with
yes,
or something. And I'm looking around, and I go, oh. And the person says, what's the matter? And I said, I don't want to say anything and make something that hasn't happened happen, because I'm not sure how much power we actually have here, or how much this is real, or whatever. They said, we already made a decision. We made an agreement. We can do no harm by doing this. We've already made that our objective. And if we can help in some way, we will. And I went, okay. So what I saw when I went into his body was his lower spine is in an L shape, and his coccyx and sacrum are tilted. I said, he's got a broken back.
Oh.
And I went, and that, now I'm feeling chills in my body running up and down my spine. And I'm going, this is the first time I've ever done this. You couldn't give me somebody like with a hangnail? And they said, it's not about you. Just continue doing the observation.
Yeah.
And I'm observing, and I'm looking, and I'm going, oh, I got it. They said, what do you got? I said, I know what happened. I'm there with this guy now. He's in the hospital in San Francisco. He was in a car accident, and his face hit the steering wheel where nose hit the steering wheel. That was the blood I saw. And his skull is fractured from where it hit the windshield. And his back is broken from the impact of the accident. They went, okay, so what do you want to do about this? I went, what do I want to do about it? I went, I don't know. I can tell you he's trying to make a decision right now whether to keep fighting for his life or whether to relax and let it go. I said, I can't get involved in that decision-making process. They said, is there anything that you think you can do to help? And I said, maybe I could take some of my goo and rub it on the parts that appear to be really painful. And maybe if I can help reduce the pain some, then maybe he can have a better clarity about making whatever decision he wants to make.
Yeah.
And they went, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't you do that? So that's what I did. I took my jar and I rubbed stuff on his forehead and on his lip and on his abdomen and on his spine. And they said, anything else you want to do? I went, no, this is plenty.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
at the end, when we were all sort of talking about our experiences, I said to the teacher, I said, that was the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. That I was able, I'm 60 miles away from where that person was, and I never met them, and I was able to connect to them in an intimate way. And she said, you know what's really amazing? And I went, if it's more than that, I don't think I want to know. She said, well, what's really amazing is that anybody can do that.
Yeah.
And the truth is, nobody does.
Yeah. It's good.
You have an amazing ability to help and heal and offer aid to one another, but we're all so afraid of being judged for whatever, for everything, that we don't reach out, we don't try to connect.
Yeah.
End of this story. A few days ago, I'm in a supermarket with Susan, and we're really in love, and it's just delightful. And every once in a while we just stop, look at each other, and hug each other wherever we happen to be. And we happen to be in the aisle of a supermarket at this particular moment. And we do this hug, and it's beautiful, and we're just both beaming. And this lady is riding her carriage, and she sees what we've done, and she went, oh my God, that is so beautiful. It's so beautiful that you guys can do that. And I went, absolutely it is. I went, could you use a hug?
Oh.
She went, yeah, I could. And so I went over and I gave her a hug. It's a total stranger. And then Susan looks at her. She said, would you like another hug? And so then Susan gave her a hug. And here we are in the middle of an aisle of a supermarket. And is there any ego attached to this? No, if there was any ego attached to it, we would never have said anything. We would have never done what we did. We just were acting completely out of compassion and love and caring.
Yeah.
We've been together for 13 months now. It just keeps getting better every day.
It's beautiful, Alan. My mom taught me how hugs are healing. So beautiful. And you led perfectly into, when people hurt their back, they often turn to Moshe Feldenkrais. And Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Well, first, his name is Moshe.
Oh, Moshe. Sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. I'm not offended. The teacher I studied integrated awareness with is part of the Feldenkrais Guild. And studied with Moshe for 5 years. So I actually know quite a lot about him. But the weakness I turned into a strength was being afraid of my father.
Yeah.
A week before my father died, we had a an interface in my bedroom, and he said, I want to show you some stuff. And he goes into the closet and he pulls out a little suitcase full of black and white photographs because he was a photographer. And he starts going through these. These are photographs from when I was born, when my sister was born, and they're of our family and everybody in the family. And he's just going through the photographs and he's telling me a little bit about each of the photographs. And he's telling me his life story through these photographs. And I got hit when I was a kid. I'm not even sure how many times. Enough times so that I would never trust him. I would never turn my back on him. I would never get angry at him because I was terrified that he would hurt me. And so we were at odds for my entire life. We were at odds until this afternoon, when he said, "I just wanted to show you a couple of things and share some things with you." And at the end of that, for the first time in my life, I was like 28, I think, at the time. I actually saw my father
Hmm.
for the first time. And a week later, he walked out of his job and died before he hit the sidewalk.
Wow.
And I went, if we hadn't had that connection, I might have been angry at him for the next 5 incarnations,
Yeah.
And because he actually let me see who he was, and he allowed me to show him who I was, all fixed,
Yeah.
all, and I think that's actually what led me on the path um, to thinking about the trauma and the overwhelms we experience as children that we don't understand. An adult even getting angry at an infant or a toddler is the equivalent of one of us facing a 10-foot tall, 600-pound grizzly bear.
Yeah.
Obviously it's not a level playing field, and the grizzly bear will completely terrify us. But that's what an adult who we're dependent upon for survival looks and feels like to us when we're a little kid. They're completely overwhelming.
Yeah.
And when they get angry, they're dangerous and they could kill us. To us, it feels like a survival level intensity threat, the same way it would if it was a grizzly bear to an adult. And
Yeah.
so, my father was not a bad person. He was a really nice person. Um, and, I think he got kind of hooked because he would go to work and I would be awful as a kid. I mean, the universe is all about me, and if it's not about me, what do I care about it? And so I would make my mother crazy. And Jerry Lewis has a song goes, "There's no such thing in all the world like a whining, crying child who irritates the other kids and drives the grown-ups wild. When he goes, gimme, gimme, can I? Oh, gee, wish you said I could. Gimme, gimme, gimme." And I'm sure that's what the kind of kid that I was. And it made
Wow.
my mother crazy. And my father would come home from work and he would go, "So how was your day?" And she'd go, "Oh my God, that kid made me fucking crazy." And the belt would come off.
Wow.
And he had no connection to what I did or how I did it or when I did it or any of that stuff. He was just protecting or defending my mother. And
Yeah.
I got whacked. And
Wow.
so what I learned was just raising your hand to a child makes it impossible for them to trust you,
Yes.
maybe ever again.
Good lesson.
Ooh.
Amazing. So well
Sorry, I
articulated.
know I'm going on a lot.
Oh, you sussed it out beautifully. And Lewis Carroll says, I believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Recently, I had this conversation with Susan yesterday. I said, I've been introducing people to their inner kids for 30 years now. 98% of them never come back. And the reason they never come back is because it's intimidating and embarrassing and shaming to think I've had this kid inside me my entire life and I've just been ignoring them.
Yeah.
And so what I said to Susan yesterday was, I said, this is our mission. We need to figure out a way to introduce the concept of inner kids to adults in a way that doesn't scare them, doesn't shame them, doesn't intimidate them. Because the reason that our relationship, mine and Susan's, is so beautiful and growing so intimately is that we see the inner kids in each other.
Yeah.
So when I'm hugging her, I'm not just hugging her, I'm hugging all of her inner kids. And I can identify most of her inner kids individually.
Yeah.
And you know, there was this great scene in an Avatar where the two main characters just look into each other's eyes and go, I see you. And what they're saying is, I see all the parts of you. And so, you know, my mission is to figure out a way to introduce that concept. Hey, we all have inner kids. We've all been wounded. We've all been overwhelmed. And unless we can figure out some way to be compassionate with one another, there's no hope for us as a species.
Well, you can do it, Alan, because McLuhan's great line is you turn a breakdown into a breakthrough, or you turn a rejection into a redirection.
Yes.
So, you know, it's like in my young group, I had a really good revelation. This woman said, well, I named my shadow self. So I says, okay, cool it there, shadow self. And she, you know, manifested it so that she could deal with it and not use it as, like your line was, not shaming. You don't want to shame. You want to flip it into a strength.
Acknowledgement, acceptance, appreciation, and love.
You taught me that in the first one. That is good. So tell me, you know, 40 years of doing this, tell me one major element that stayed the same and one major element that changed.
In my therapy practice?
Yeah, in your therapy practice, one major element stayed the same, one major element that's changed.
Well, the one that stayed the same is that everybody is deserving of compassion.
Yeah.
And love.
Good.
So I can't, God, that's what stayed the same. The thing that has changed is I'm no longer willing to not have my heart be fully open.
Yeah.
I think that's what I incarnated this time to do, was to learn how to be present and keep my heart open.
Yeah.
Because if your heart's not open, you just stop feeling. And if you're not feeling another person, you can treat them like a thing and do anything to them.
Yeah.
You have to be able to feel one another in order to be able to relate.
Well, that's perfect lead in. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
When it reminds you you don't want to go there anymore.
Jeez, that's good. Can satire be destructive? My friend who wrote comedy with Robin Williams said that's the job of satire. And if me or you do a certain cartoon in a certain country and they kill us, some people think dying is destructive. But Swift compared satire to a mirror in which people could see every face but their own. In fact, Frank Zappa says, watch the Nazis run your town. Now go home and check yourself. You think we're singing about somebody else.
I gotcha. And if your kids never figure out how lame you are, they'll murder you in your sleep.
I love when people can do that, Alan. What is the function of satire?
I think it's to shine a light on those places within us that we're not willing to look at on our own.
Yeah.
Um, that person you mentioned that was a friend of Robin Williams, that wouldn't have been David Mish, would it?
It is David Mish. You are beyond. How did you know David?
I was actually, when I was Susie's agent, I was his agent at the same time.
It's amazing. David Mish is written. He's been on my podcast. Asked him all these same questions. He's written a
Oh, I
book.
gotta find it. I love David Mish. I
Yeah,
haven't talked to him in 50 years.
Oh, I'll tell him. We hooked up, and he wrote a book on comedy and does workshops on it, and really great guy. Yeah, we did.
He was the major writer for Mork and Mindy.
That's exactly what I was talking about, and we did a salon on comedy, and we did an interview together.
Oh, this is too good, Jerry. This is
Yeah,
just too good.
that was. But it is interesting, McLuhan loved to quote Steve Allen, behind every joke, there's a grievance. I don't know about every, but behind jokes, there's a grievance. Any thought on that? And
well, humor is about surprise.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to surprise someone is with a pratfall.
Yeah.
So if you can show a way that somebody was hurt, but it's not you, then we can laugh about it.
Yeah.
Because we empathize with the hurt, and we're thrilled that it's not us.
Yeah.
I don't think all comedy has to be that way. I mean,
yeah.
Robin Williams he didn't have to do that at all, but
yeah,
he did it a lot.
But there's some Gurdjieff says that laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no. What's the function of laughter?
To exercise your inner organs.
Yeah.
In a non-threatening way.
Beautiful. It's like I was upset the other day because the way the news reported the Iowa caucus, it's like landslide. It's like, are you guys, why do you have to use that word? Because they're trying to be the news. Okay. And the news has changed. We used to have people like Walter Cronkite, and we trusted the news. Then there was a shift with Jon Stewart. And you can read this article, how he spawned Tucker Carlson, and it became more of a
Jon Stewart spawned Tucker Carlson?
Yes, it's a very interesting book. It's just like how much money was plopped into Jon Stewart led to, well, we can do that too. So they plop a lot of money into, controlling people with the news, having people glued to the news. And so, I'm curious your thoughts on satire news. We had it with Harry Shearer's show. We had it, but that was the week that was Saturday Night Live. Now it's Stephen Colbert. Does satire news more activate or more pacify people?
Well, I hope it more activates them personally. I can't speak for anybody else, but those people you just mentioned, those lefty communists, are the only thing that makes watching TV worthwhile, watching network TV worthwhile.
Yeah.
People like Stephen Colbert and and Noah. And,
yeah.
I mean, The Daily Show is an oasis of sanity.
Yeah.
In a world of lunacy. And, we all know that that the communication industry is all about money, and it's all owned by corporations who want to make money.
Yeah.
And so, I hate this phrase almost more than any other phrase that I know. If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
is the mantra of network news,
Yeah.
and it means that they refuse to take responsibility for the way they're portraying reality.
Yeah.
And what has happened to us as a culture is that we've been systematically scared into submission, um, day after day after day. Here's 50 things that are awful, and you can't do anything about any of them.
Yeah.
When I was in my 20s, I got that.
Yeah.
I understood that, and I went, "That's it. I'm done with the news."
Yeah.
And from the time I was 20 to the time Donald Trump started running for president, I never read a newspaper or watched the news.
Yeah.
That's 50 years of ignoring it because I knew that it was just going to make me crazy and pissed off.
Yeah.
And
For your own sanity, my friend says, I don't read the news or anything until afternoon. But that's Scoop Nisker. You remember him in San Francisco? He says, if you don't like the news, go make your own. Yeah, which is a very positive
it is.
thing. And I'm curious. Utah Phillips is labor activist and folk singer and comedy a songwriter, Moose Turd Pie. He says, anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Well, that's a great question. That is a question that came home big time when I was 22, graduating from college. And 3 days after I graduated, I reported for a physical to go to Vietnam. And I passed the physical, but they said, you need to come back for a psych eval. And I said, when's that happening? They said, in about 6 weeks. So I had 6 weeks to think about whether this psych eval was going to end up sending me to Vietnam or not. And there was no way I was going to go. I refused to pick up a gun. I refused to aim a gun at anybody. I refused to assume that somebody's an enemy that I never met. All those things just seemed completely insane to me. And I went, I have to understand better what's going on here, because I think I said in one of our other chats, what we do best as a species is paint ourselves into ever smaller corners.
Yeah.
We create problems for ourselves, and we create circumstances that alienate us from each other, and there's profit in doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a part of any part of that computation.
Yeah.
I already forgot what the question was.
Well, no, it's who's entitled to make the rules.
Oh, that's right. I went, so when do I get to make some rules? What's going on here?
Me. Well, most people say, well, we all are, but it's funny because John Basil Barnhill was a socialist. He says, where the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Where the government fears the people, you have liberty. Then V for Vendetta, the movie, paraphrased it, people should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people. So my question to you, Alan, is how do you personally handle false fears like the war on drugs? You can't say no to drugs because drugs don't talk, and you can't fight drugs because drugs don't fight. So, we know these false fears, the war on drugs, the war on poverty, the war on terrorism. How do you personally handle them?
I get inspiration from my heroes.
Yeah.
And one of my heroes was Timothy Leary.
Yeah.
And I have this great recording that he did like in 1971. And part of what he talks about is, he said, you can't legislate sin.
Yeah.
Because everybody has their own vice. And so he said, so you can't keep people from doing it. So what we should do is we should have them pay a tax. Pay
Yeah.
$1,000 a year to smoke pot. Pay $1,000 a year to do acid. Pay $1,000 a year to do prostitution. Pay $1,000 a year to make smog. Pay $1,000 a year. He said, you can't stop people from doing it. So you might as well just tax people and
Yeah.
let them do the thing in a more controlled way. He said,
Yeah.
there's 2 million people in California that smoke marijuana. If they all, and they'd all be happy to pay $1,000 a year so that they don't have to pay $10,000 to a lawyer to get them out of
Yeah.
jail. And he said that would create $2 billion in California alone.
Yeah.
So that's how
I like that. That's beautiful. I love Tim too. There's a line, Alan, that goes, you create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your brain is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. How do you react to this line? You create what you resist, or not you, Alan, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that?
My knee-jerk reaction to that is that language is a virus.
Yeah. Wow.
And we think that if we use words, that will keep us safe.
Yeah.
Because if we're speaking, then the words are hanging there between us and we don't have to connect intimately. And we use language to create distance between us. And, that's kind of the essence of painting yourself into ever smaller corners.
It is.
If we've chosen for our ability to connect with each other to be words, which are just squiggles and symbols. A map is not the territory it describes.
Well,
words are not the things that they describe. They're just symbols, and you. In my Buddhist practice, my attempt is to achieve non-attachment.
yeah.
Don't be attached, and that, which is not the same as being detached. Detached means you're separated from everything. Non-attachment means you're connected to everything, and nothing is more important than anything else. Certainly words are not more important than anything else.
Alan, that's T.S. Eliot said, when I talk to you, I got to use words. It's like, no, you don't. You can use gesture. You can use hugs, like we already said. So we got about 15, 20 more minutes, a few more. This has really been fun. How do you find peace of mind?
Take slow, deep breaths. I put my hand in my tummy and I repeat this. It's okay. I got this. We're in no danger. Nobody's chasing us. I will handle this.
Beautiful.
That's it. That's the whole banana right there.
That's it. Alan, these are 5 Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head in a couple words, just briefly. Sure. 1, who started it all?
We did.
2, are we going to make it?
Yes.
3, where do we put it?
Wherever we want to.
4, who's cleaning it up?
We are.
5, is it serious?
No.
Man, you are great. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
Over, absolutely.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Loving Our Inner Kids.
They want to scent the glue and the binding. What smell?
Lavender.
I love it. If a statue is built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
I'd want it in a museum and I'd want it made out of vinyl.
Vinyl!
Or Naugahyde.
Naugahyde. That sounds like a space age bachelor pad.
I met Martin Mull a bunch of years ago,
Oh, I
And,
want to interview him so bad. I love
oh,
Martin.
yes, you would. He went to Rhode Island School of Design.
Risty, yes, he
Yeah,
did.
the night I met him, I was with a friend of his who used to be his road manager, and he brought this portfolio, this box about 16 inches by 16 inches, and in the box he had, I don't know, about 15 sheets of paper. On each piece of paper was a pizza in the design of a country. So Israel was a pizza with a yarmulke. Uh, each one was another edible country, and he said, when I was in college, I had to do my PhD in art, and I baked and decorated things that I could eat because art should be eaten.
Oh, that is so good.
That's part
Um,
A. Part two is while I was an agent, one of my clients was a guy. God, I wish I could remember his real name. His name was Sidewalk Sam.
yeah.
And Sidewalk Sam was a chalk artist. And in his real life, he was a copyist for the Louvre. So he would make copies of,
Yeah.
Van Gogh's and
Yeah.
The Last Supper, and they would hang them when the other pictures were being cleaned or whatever. But after he left his job being a colorist, a copyist, he became Sidewalk Sam, and he would do the most amazing pieces of art on sidewalks in chalk, and
And then they would disappear.
and
That's
then
what
they
I
would
want.
disappear, like the Buddhist monks doing their sand painting,
Sand,
because
exactly.
it's all about non-attachment.
And talk about that back to RISD and Martin Mull. His final project for RISD was in the bathroom of the art museum on the toilet paper. That you pulled the toilet, and that's was his art.
I
To me,
remember that.
I love Martin Mull. That's beautiful.
Me too. I
Okay.
have all of his albums.
Yep. Okay, Alan, tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Where did that come from?
I'll tell you after you answer, or if you want to answer it. Yeah.
Something good that I never had, but I'd never want.
Yeah.
A Tesla.
That's great. You answered it. You know where I got it? It's
I have
from
no idea.
NLP,
Oh,
neuro-linguistic
neuro-linguistic
programming.
programming. Yeah.
When you ask the person that question, you watch which way their eyes go, up, down, or straight ahead, and then there's some code. But anyways, they're sort of
My eyes closed, right?
yeah. Well, I don't know the technique because I know those guys were sort of well, they basically hijacked. No, I shouldn't. I'm not trying to make a value judgment.
It's okay.
NLP
It's okay.
NLP is NLP, but they got a lot of it from Erickson hypnotism.
That's right. Milton Erickson.
Milton, you know that. Okay, so
I learned a lot of my techniques in hypnosis from Milton Erickson's.
Milton's one of the okay, if you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Dive.
Dive. I love it. You know, Hollis Framps is an experimental filmmaker. He says narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Can you forget to die?
I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. I've been facilitating, I think I told you this before, I've been facilitating past life regressions since the early 70s. So I've done, God, I don't know, 400, 500 past life regressions. And, when there's this great scene in Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Yeah.
where Gary Oldman finally is sitting at a table with Winona Ryder. And he looks at her and he's holding her hands and he goes, I have crossed oceans of time to find you. And
Wow.
that's what I said to Susan when we finally connected. I have crossed oceans of time to find you. And if it took me another 100 incarnations to get back to you, it would be worth it.
Woo! That is LOVE, love, dude.
I
It's
think so.
beautiful.
I think
It's
so.
it's beautiful when you can connect with someone like that. So
It's
what's
it's boggling to me.
it's what?
It's mind-boggling to me.
It's mind-boggling. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
How do we continue to eat ice cream without getting fat?
I like that. That is a beautiful question. What's the
The
culture?
stars are matter and we're matter, but it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. I toast to Don Van Vliet, 83 years old. Okay, so what's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
More and more people are beginning to access their higher self
Yeah,
through either meditation or some kind of practice, and um, and it's building an energy vortex that is more attractive than the kill or be killed vortex of the chimpanzees. And I believe that we're on the verge. Things have to become really dangerous before people are willing to look at moving in the direction of helping to fix them.
yeah,
We have to feel threatened.
yeah,
And God, if as a culture we're not feeling threatened by what the Republican Party has become, then we have no reason to do anything to make it better. But um, I think there's enough people that are not buying into that Kool-Aid, uh,
yeah.
and that are committed to making life better. Like I
Make the
said,
world,
I asked a total stranger if she wanted a hug in a
yeah,
supermarket, and she melted in my arms.
yeah,
And I went, did that cost me anything?
yeah,
No, it was. Here's my motto: there's nothing so good that it isn't improved 100 times by sharing it.
yeah. It's really good.
So that's all I want to do. I want to share good times, good feeling, good energy, good words, good jokes, good smiles, and good hugs.
I'm with you, Alan. That's simple. But how has 40 years of doing your therapy shaped your behavior?
Well, it certainly taught me that you can't help people that aren't willing to be helped.
Yeah,
And um, most of us are kids running around in adult-sized bodies thinking we're not good enough, we're not capable enough, we're not worthy enough. And so we've invented this entire Western medicine paradigm
yeah,
where if you pay money to an insurance company, they will take care of you and you don't have to do anything to take care of yourself. It's an act of total irresponsibility. It is the logic of a child to
yeah.
think, if I break my bike, daddy will buy me a new one, and
Yeah, it's
uh,
amazing, Alan, what you having studied Eastern philosophies, I have a little too, is I learned that in the East, you're taught maintenance. In the West, we're taught go to the doctor and they give you a cure, but they'll say, well, it's not a cure, it's an effective remedy. But what we want to do is learn how to maintain.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I think the best way to do that is find somebody to love, need somebody to love, want somebody to love, and love them.
Yeah.
Anybody who will sit still long enough to allow you to love them is somebody you need to be a friend with.
Yeah. Like
You
Eden Op-
you were really, God, how lucky were you to find Susie, who
Oh
is
man, I'm the luckiest man in the world. I know that.
so willing to sit still and allow you to love her, right?
I am a lucky man. I am so lucky. And
I,
you really evoked one of the great songwriters who hung out in Venice, California, Eden Abe. He wrote a song called Nature Boy with the greatest thing you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return.
it's beautiful.
What a line. Okay, two more and we're out of here. What a fun time, Alan. I learned so much and I'm grateful.
Jerry, you're an amazing interviewer and just a great person.
Thank you.
I'm
This is,
thrilled to have you as a friend.
yes, we are due to continue this. Thornton Wilder said in 1928, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for hours. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this, Alan. What's it really all about for you?
Presence.
Oh my God, that's your email address.
My email address. It's the license plate on my car.
Boy, you nailed that down to one word, presence.
Well,
Boy,
if you don't show up, what do you got, right?
yeah, Thornton Wilder would have loved that, presents. Yeah, you mean Christmas presents? Joyce has a word in Finnegan's Wake. It's crossmas. Uh, it's combining crossword puzzle and Christmas present. And it's like, what a combo, because presents, it really evokes more than its meaning. It's like knowing Alan's like a Christmas present, but it's like being here now. Be here now. That's what it's all about. Presence.
Yes, exactly. And Ram Dass is another one of my heroes.
Oh, Ram Dass's Godhead. Okay, this is the last question for now. What gives you the most optimism?
The fact that they haven't killed me yet.
That's good. Well, the first question I asked you at the beginning of part one was, what's the best thing for a human being? And Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. The last
Beautiful.
the last question is what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life. What gives you the most optimism? He said other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person. Thank you so much, Alan. And I've got to end out with a joke in a McLuhan line. This is one of Marshall's favorite jokes to set up the line. The priest is trying to cross the Canadian border and he's got a flask, and the custom officer says, "Excuse me, Father, what's in that flask?" And he says, "Water." And the custom officer says, "Let me see that." And he takes a swig and he goes, "That's whiskey." And the priest goes, "It's a miracle." So Marshall followed it. Communication of the new is a miracle, but it's not impossible. So, Alan, thank you for communicating all this newness to me, because I have to process. I have over 10 pages of notes that I took. I mean, literally, I've really gotten into these times with you. And
Me
even
too,
though,
Jerry. It's been an absolute joy.
yeah, and even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I know and hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Jerry, it would be my pleasure and my honor to do so.
Thank you.
Hugs to everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, we can reach out and touch. See, you just touched that little green dot right there. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Alan.
Have a great night.